All right, so I um I chose to do my report on Japan. Um, my reasoning for doing this report on Japan is just because I've had a couple friends travel there, and it's just a place full of cultural diversity, as well as a hub for a lot of businesses. Mainly manufacturing and a lot of industrialization. So I chose to do my report on Japan, and here it is. So before I go into talking about my primary source, which is a guy by the name of Hiroki Hirokawa from Japan. He was an exchange student when I was in high school. We became really close, and I was able to get in touch with him and to kind of get an inside perspective on what he sees in his actual country, which was really insightful, and I think it really helped with my research. So that is a picture of me and Hiroki. So as far as the social customs go, they're really particular on their greetings. A formal way to greet would be to bow with your hands together, like such. An informal way to greet would be just a simple head nod like this, which they give a lot of Westerners some slack when it comes to greetings. So that could be something useful. And then shaking hands is very unheard of in the Japanese society. So really no need for shaking hands. During meetings, nodding like such, maybe a smile like this will act as you're interested in what they're saying, and it will keep the meeting going smoothly. Also, punctuality is essential to any Japanese meeting. Some things you should avoid are some close contact, just any kind of close personal space issues. They're very, they like to keep their distance. Any prolonged eye contact, no slouching in a chair, that's kind of seen as disrespectful. And also no beckoning with your forefinger like such. So family life, Hiroki had a quote about his family. He said, "My family is very important to me. We eat dinner together almost every night. The houses in Japan are smaller, and so family is very close." And kind of want to go into the husband and wife role. In Japan, men are usually the main source of income. They usually work in manufacturing, maybe an automotive factory, or some sort of industrial job. Whereas the women will, they'll stay home and usually take care of the children, or if it's in a kind of a rural area, they will look over the farm and such. Some significant statistics that I thought I'd bring up. The median age of women having their first child is 30.3 years of age. I think that's very significant because it shows that they're a very educated society. These women are often educated in contraceptive use and uses of birth control that prevent early pregnancies. So that's why that median age for having their first child is pretty high. I also want to go into the elderly dependency ratio, which is around 42.1%. I also think that's very significant. It kind of shows how close knit the families really are, and it kind of shows that it's kind of a cycle. You're born and your parents take care of you, and then when you get to a certain age, you take care of them, and it just kind of goes around in a cycle like that. So that elderly dependency ratio says a lot about the families in Japan. Housing is a big issue. The population of Japan is 127 million people. There are a lot of zoning issues. In the same city, you might have a factory, you might have houses, you might have skyscrapers, and you might have farms, all within 10 to 20 miles of each other. So it is very compact, and it has become a problem with the zoning issues. Many people are starting to move out to suburbs of the city. However, many people still live in these government built apartment dormitory style living arrangements in the city so that they can be close to work, etc. Clothing, Western clothing is becoming more a part of the Japanese life, but there is Japanese clothing is still relevant. There are a couple of significant Japanese pieces of clothing that I'd like to go over. One is the kimono, which is in the U.S. it would kind of be considered a robe like clothing. Also, there's the called a piece of clothing called the happy, and this is a coat with straight sleeves and usually worn with a belt. And so tying clothing into the whole business thing, really it's pretty similar to the West and specifically the U.S. Men are expected to wear suits and ties. Women are expected to wear dresses and heels. Food. Japan has many different types of food. They're very different compared to what we would expect in the U.S. During a business meal, it's important to hesitate food and drink at the first offer. If someone offers you food or drink, say no thank you at first, and then of course they'll insist, and then you can gladly accept. It's good to anticipate toasts. Toasts are a very big thing, especially during Japanese meals. Remember, it is acceptable to slurp, and it's often used as a compliment to slurp if you have noodles or something like that. And you're never supposed to refuse a drink in a group activity. Drinking is usually a group activity, so to refuse a drink would be kind of disrespectful to the group. The class structure, race is not really an issue. 98% of the population is Japanese. There are a few different ethnicities thrown in there. One of the biggest would be Korean, which is around a little less than 2%. But, race doesn't really affect the class structure as much as you would think, because they really are all, original Japanese people. Similarly, economically, it's not really relevant. There are a lot of middle class working in manufacturing or rural villages. So there's really not a lot of social mobility there. It's a lot of heavy middle class. Religion is not relevant enough in this society to have an impact on class structure. They don't really take religion as seriously as we would maybe in the West. There are some Shintoism and there's Buddhism, but they just don't play as big of a role in the lives of the people as it does in the West. In business, actually, the class structure is hierarchical. Men are considered higher than women. Older are considered higher than younger people, and executives, of course, are considered higher than lower level employees. Some political patterns. All right, so there's three branches, similar to the U.S. There's a legislative, the executive, and the judicial. There's also two houses, the House of Representatives and the House of Councilors. There's the executive branch that's run by the Prime Minister and a cabinet, and then the judicial branch is made up of a Supreme, a district, and a family court. Voting. If you're over the age of 20, you have suffrage in Japan, which means you are free to vote. Some political parties include the Liberal Democratic Party, Social Democratic Party, Democratic Party of Japan, Japanese Communist Party. Religion, like I said, there's 79% Shintoism, 6.8% Buddhism, 1.5% Christianity, and 7% other. Notice that these statistics are over 100%. Because a lot of people associate with Shintoism and Buddhism at the same time. They kind of do a double religion like that. There's a Bon festival that is really big in Japan. It's kind of like a Dia de los Muertos in Mexico, where they celebrate the deceased and by cleaning the grave sites and festivities and such. Hiroki said that he practices both Shintoism and Buddhism traditions and also participates in the Bon festival. Some economic institutions for you. GDP is 4.75 trillion, which is actually the 5th greatest in the world, or best, however you would want to put that. They do rely heavily on trade in Japan because of their lack of resources and so many people compacted together. They are known for their rapid economic growth, especially since World War II. Most of this is due to industrialization as well as their intense export policy with other countries. Manufacturing is very important. They're actually the leaders in automotive and shipbuilding industries. And they actually, I think what's really cool is they have this organization called the Keiretsu, which are corporate groups that get together and they're all kind of unified for economic growth. You know, they're not always in competition with each other. They push for economic growth for their country. Um, okay, as far as business cards, those are very, very important in Japan. They're often the first thing exchanged, even before the handshake. Your business card is your personal identity. It is your look. It is essential to have many, many cards on you while traveling to Japan. Also, what's really cool is work is completed with a group effort. It's a all fail or all succeed attitude, which is really good for collaboration. Some value systems. Hiroki had to say that the Japanese people think family and working hard are important. My dad takes his job very seriously, and my mom is good at raising the children. Hiroki cherishes his friends and family and values his schoolwork as well. The education system is something that Japan is very prideful of. Actually, the literacy rate is almost 100%, which I think is fantastic. And that's all, folks. And that is my report on Japan by Christian Hill. Thank you.